I ran a campaign when I was in college that had 40 plus players at a certain point.
40 players? How long was a turn in combat?
We landed with 3 tables. Soldiers, seekers, schemers.
3 tables. Okay, so it's basically like 3 separate campaigns. How's that one campaign?
A West Marches campaign is effectively a shared world with more adventurers that are player characters than can fit at the table in one session.
Oh, it's West Marches. That's so cool. I mean, the main reason to run West Marches is to sort of get the players to self-organize and schedule sessions themselves. I mean, an actual play won't do that, but you could.
Welcome to Mystic Arts, where we say, move aside Matt Mercer effect and ask, what about the Brennan Lee Mulligan effect? I can't improv a masterful monologue after losing a rigged game. My name is Daði. I'm a professional writer and director, and I've been DMing for over 10 years. In case you missed it, Critical Role just announced that their next series, Campaign 4, will have 13 players playing across 3 different tables in what they're calling a West Marches style of play. Only what they described in their announcement video isn't exactly a West Marches style of play. I've run nearly 100 sessions in a West Marches campaign for around 50 players for over 2 years. And if you're new to the hobby, or maybe you're just not familiar with this term as it's merely escaped you until now, let me tell you what it is and how it solves the problem of I have too many players. But we'll also touch on a less discussed aspect. The thing West Marches is better at solving. My players don't seem to care about anything. So, where does this playstyle come from? To the History Corner!
West Marches is a style of play created by author Ben Robbins, creator of games like Kingdom and Microscope. I've played Microscope and it's awesome. It's really a perfect way to build a campaign setting with your players. He outlined the rules for West Marches on his blog. They were: 1. There was no regular playtime. Every session was scheduled by players on the fly. And 2. There was no regular party. Each game had different players drawn from a pool of around 10 to 14 people. 3. There was no regular plot. The players decided where to go and what to do. It was a sandbox game in that sense. You know, in the same way that Grand Theft Auto is. Except there's no missions. There's no mysterious old man sending them on quests, no overarching plot, just an overarching environment. If you want the blog and its connected articles, I've linked them below. Ben says his goals were twofold. 1. Make the players stop mindlessly following plots, get them in charge of both what they did in the game and when they played. If they didn't care enough to book a session, no game was booked. And 2, a flexible ad hoc schedule meant people played when they could and attended only the sessions that they had the time for. And this bit from his blog was especially relatable. Letting the players decide where to go was also intended to nip DM procrastination in the bud. Normally, a DM just puts off running a game until they're 100% ready, which is sometimes never. True! But with this arrangement, if some of the players wanted to raid the Sunken Fort this weekend, I had to hurry up and finish it. It was gaming on demand, so the players created deadlines for me. Yeah, that'll guarantee you run the game.
Anyway, how does it work? Well, there is sort of a basic built-in premise. There's a reason why it's called the West Marches. You, the DM, find a spot in your world, or make a world just for this, like Ahriman, and you say that it's the frontier on the edge of a civilization. In a feudal aristocracy, a region that was on the border of a nation was sometimes called a march, or a mark, like the Riddermark in Rohan, or the Altmark or Ostmark in Europe. The lord in charge of a march would be a marquis, margrave, marmaduke, marquess, or marchioness. One of those isn't a real title. The monarch trusted this borderland lord to tame the wilderness, and typically this title would be awarded to a sort of warrior lord, as opposed to the sort of courtly lords of the civilized lands. In Game of Thrones, the North has all the flavor of being a march, except for the fact that it's the ancestral homeland of the First Men. But if this borderland were to the west of your nation, it might be called the West Marches. When I ran my West Marches game, I said that a royal decree created by the king entrusted the local lord with great power and wealth to tame the region. That lord then trusted in itinerant adventurers to explore and tame the march. But you don't need the feudal flavor if you don't want it. Honestly, the game I'm running right now is basically a West Marches premise at a traditional table. Loggers County is a vast, untamed wilderness, and the politicians back in Blackguard don't care about it. One of the player characters got elected county commissioner, and now they're trying to make something of this place. Inside the forest, I then put loads of factions who are all fighting amongst themselves, and the only way the players will ever learn anything is by exploring the wilderness. What you need is to detail the regions that the characters are exploring to a fairly fine degree. It'll come up a lot. Location, time, and distances will matter in a West Marches style of play. You create sub-areas within your march. Ben called his the Frog Marshes, Cradlewood, and Pike Hollow. When I ran West Marches, I called them the Golden Hills, the Aralon Mountains, and the Greenwood. In Loggers County, I didn't come up with any names because I wanted the players to learn different words for various regions and then name regions of the map themselves. And that's sort of the heart of this game. Not just exploring, but the players driving the story forward with their own ambitions and goals and intentions. If you want to run a West Marches style of game, I've got videos all about the subject on this channel, and I've secretly been building a backlog so I can do this. Here we go. First, you center your game around a hex crawl with 3-mile hexes. 3-mile hexes is the perfect size for a hex that maximizes informed choices and minimizes fractions and other needlessly complex game elements. Second, you create a simple setting consisting of a wilderness, a faraway city, and most importantly, a frontier town which will become your player's home base. Keep the town dead simple and don't put any plot lines in there. 3, you create a hex map with a few different factions in different spheres of influence fighting in the wilderness that you created before. The filled out map with all of these details is just for you. The players see an empty map like this and they have to explore it to find out what's in there. Have them fill it in. Then they send the hex map back and forth and it'll eventually look something like this. Fourth, you create or steal 3 bebeegs and make them the arch-villains of 3 unrelated plots that you can plan back to front that have nothing to do with the players. You want a plot that can play out on its own, a war between factions. Fifth, you fill the map with dungeons, mostly 5-room dungeons, but maybe 3 that are a bit bigger, and maybe 1 mega dungeon that connects into multiple dungeons. Oh, man, it's almost like I plan these things. Oh, and each dungeon has to have clues to at least, let's say, 3 other dungeons. Maybe 1 or 2 repeating clues, but also new ones. It's gotta be juicy. Something that entices players to go out there and explore. You find a note that says, "I'll find you at the hidden grove, and you will give me the Moonblade of Eleonora." And there's a little map with it. I guarantee this will get your sword-swinging players to compete to go to the hidden grove to get the Moonblade of Eleonora, and they'll be rushing to schedule game night. And your players will tell you what they want to do next. But how do they do that? Well, you gathered them somewhere. You reached out to your friends, coworkers, family, or strangers who are like a little bit nerdy, but you think you can make them a lot more nerdy. You took them and put them all into a chat software of some kind. If you're old, it's email. If you're young, it's WhatsApp. If you're Corpo, Slack. If you're Icelandic, Facebook. If I were to do this today, I'd use a Discord server and organize the crap out of it. Here's how. Category for PC handouts. Players can't send stuff in here and DMs fill it in. In here, you'll put useful files, like access to the rules of the system you're playing in, supplements you're allowing. You'll put another one with essential table rules, guidelines for character creation, how to make, buy, or trade magic items with other players. We made a whole economy for it in our game, and guidance on how to book sessions. For your own sanity, make sure the players are booking sessions with a few days' notice, and whoever books the session has to say what date, time, and place. Then everyone else signs up to a maximum of 6. Category for DM guidance. How to hand out magic items, how to prepare encounters and dungeons, sharing Mystic Arts content to help players make 5-room dungeons, that kind of thing. And finally, chat rooms for whatever you think you might need or like. Memes, map updates, game logistics, stories, and I recommend a Discord forum for booking sessions. New forums should start with something like, "Hi, next Saturday at 1900 at my place we'll go to the Hidden Grove and see what's in there. I want the sword that's rumored to be in there, but you guys can split the rest of the loot. DM needed." And then people book themselves into the thread. Max 6 players and a DM. And yeah, that means someone's got to volunteer to DM or no game happens. So players get used to DMing. And then, at the end, the players add the write-ups in there. West Marches players should be writing up what happened in their adventures. And DMs can't do the write-ups. that spoils everything. It's about the player's imperfect knowledge. The goal here is to create a social game outside the role-playing game, collecting clues about what dungeons are in the wilderness and what is in those dungeons. It'll make your players crave the game. They'll be rabid, honestly. Some of them will still just show up for game night, which this is sort of meant to solve, but they'll only do it when the active ones book sessions to chase the loot they want. And when the inactive players see active players get loot by chasing it, then the normally inactive players will be more incentivized to book their own sessions to get the good loot for themselves. Your players will barter over the loot. This creates a sort of meta game above the RPG. We're not just playing a game at the table, but always. We're playing it when we're doing our boring office job, or when we're commuting, or on the bus, or stuck at family dinner. We can open up Discord, sign up and read rumors, concoct wild plans and schemes. It'll be amazing. The core idea here, where West March's style of play thrives the most, is that it's sort of D&D at its most explicitly gamified. Like, I use milestone leveling, but I wouldn't do it for West Marches. If you wanted to do milestones for this sort of play, you'd have to come up with some kind of meta system for it. You get 1 milestone per dungeon you finish, and you need to have gain milestones equal to your level since you last leveled up to level up again. Honestly, just reward XP for hostile monsters killed, and then make each dungeon have loot corresponding with the level of the dungeon. So you balance dungeons for 6th level players and consult the Dungeon Master's Guide for loot for 6th level challenges. This will create a sort of loot for risk system that becomes systematized between multiple dungeon masters. I suppose I should clarify that part. Of course, West March's style games can be of different scales. If you've got 10 to 14 players and are averaging 1 session a week, it's basically a regular playgroup with an irregular schedule. But in my 50+ player game, we had 3 people consistently DM. Myself, Ivar, and Magnus. But here's the kicker, something like 10 others gave DMing a try while the campaign was running. It was amazing. Loads of people tried to DM. They gave it a shot, and forever DMs got to play. I had one of the highest level characters in the campaign because I was there for 80% of the sessions, either playing or DMing. And we DMs had guidance between them on how to handle loot. We all talked to each other. We wanted to make sure that we were handing out loot roughly evenly, so one of us didn't become the popular DM because they gave out more loot, like a divorced dad currying favor.
In an ideal world, at the end of this campaign, people have gotten to jump from table to table and experience to experience.
Yeah, the purpose of West Marches is sort of playing with all kinds of players, swapping groups, trying different gameplay dynamics, trying to play with multiple DMs. It's a crash course in getting introduced to the hobby, and it's really good at that. There's this one bid from the blog that I want to highlight. Ben Robbins says, "Fear the social monster. This is a big granddaddy of all warnings. Even more so than many games, West Marches is a social beast. In normal games, players have an established place in the group. They know when they're supposed to show up, every Tuesday to play. They don't have to think about that or worry about whether they belong in the group. On the other hand, West Marches is a swirling vortex of ambition and insecurity. How come nobody replied when I tried to get the group together last week? Why didn't anybody invite me to raid the Ochre Cave? And so on ad infinitum. The thrilling success or catastrophic failure of your West Marches game will largely hinge on the confidence or insecurity of your player pool. Buckle up. Yeah, cliques will form, and your group will fluctuate and shrink. You've got to find ways to shake the group up if you want to avoid this. On the other hand, you might discover who your most active players are, or who you like playing with the most. In that way, West Marches is, a lot like Tinder, or maybe like the speed dating version of D&D. It's shallow, all about loot and XP, but you will play with loads of people and you'll get to know loads of players. Ultimately, a West Marches style of game is very loot oriented. It's about going into dungeons and finding loot. The gameplay is about weighing risk versus reward, which begs the question, what are you risking? Well, it's death. West Marches games are at their best when they're ludicrously fatal. According to my data, in our average West Marches session, about 3/4 of a player character died out of 6 total player characters. Or to put it another way, over the course of 4 sessions, 3 PCs died. I mean, we all had multiple characters, we saved up and brought diamonds, and we made deals about resurrection. We tried our best to recover the bodies, but often that didn't work. People made new characters all the time, and surviving the dungeon was the game, which means leaving a dungeon unfinished is often a decent option. If your party has sustained serious casualties, then the final boss might just TPK all of you. So are you sure you want to risk it for the loot? And the DM often put in a treasure room, an optional boss chamber where the loot was greater, but so was the challenge. So the DM sets it up as this sort of risk versus reward question. Yeah, this goblin dungeon has a little corridor leading to a chamber where a dire troll nests. The dire troll protects a helm of teleportation.
A helm of teleportation could be useful, and I've still got a couple of fireballs in me. Okay, but Surrounded the Paladin is dead, and Surrender, the other Paladin, has no smites left in him. We can come back later. Yeah, but only if it's still here.
All of this comes together to make a very explicit gameplay premise. When the players see insurmountable challenges, they think to themselves, imagine how good the loot's gonna be. And you don't have to have loot be just magic items. You can build in stuff like boons or charms into the rumors the players get. Not items, but something a little more intangible. You could use something like the Tome of Intangible Treasures, the sponsor of today's video, to create even more varied loot. In here you'll find 250 boons and blessings, 65 consumable charms, 65 packed, 100 titles, trainings, and so much more. It's kind of wild. You'll be finding new fun items to tempt players with non-stop. It's a 5-star rated book at DriveThruRPG, and I can see why. It's kind of amazing. Click the link in the description to check them out. In my experience, the thing with West Marches that most people don't realize is just how much of the game happens not at the table, but in the forums you run them out of. In my game, I founded a kingdom and allied with other players to have them serve as my vassals, and our goals reflected that. Other players had their own goals too. Everyone was plotting something. That helm of teleportation became the center of an economy for paying for teleportation trips to the big city to buy magic items. As DMs, we encouraged it because it helped keep everyone invested. Yeah, the wilderness is fascinating, and that's where the adventure happens, but the loot and the money was a way for characters to achieve their motives. It was very easy to map your character's story into the adventure, because all you had to desire was wealth and power to fix your own backstory problems back home. Your backstory didn't feature, but it motivated you to go to the adventure locations, to loot them. My character in that West Marches game is maybe my most memorable character to me. He certainly felt the most real. I spent all this money making a castle and guarding it with spells and runes and glyphs, repeatedly casting spells on it to defend it. And of course, one day, the DM texted me and said, hey, what are you doing next Wednesday? I said, nothing. So he booked a session saying he was attacking my castle. And I had to go rally defenders, send messages, be like, hello, please help me. I had to find players on short notice to protect my castle from being destroyed. And it was epic. But from what I hear, people used to play like this all the time back in the day. And that's true. Back to the history corner.
You see, the way we play now, one character, one campaign, play for a year, and then retire, it's not really historically accurate. The game back in the 1970s was much more like West Marches. And everyone, self-organized players, went to delve into those dungeons, to find loot and lug it back, and hopefully not die in the process. West Marches may feel like a wild and radical departure, but honestly, the game you're probably playing now is more of a departure from the historical playstyle. Page 5 of the OD&D rules, by the way, state clearly that the game is for 1 referee and 4 to 50 players. And as someone who's done both heavily narrative and story-driven games and the loot, kill, dungeons game, I can say I enjoyed both immensely, and oftentimes I find myself missing our West Marches game today. There's a reason my current big story-driven campaign is basically West Marches. I'm trying to have my cake and eat it too, and it's sort of working.
And I think that's what's happening at Critical Role. They want to have the entire original cast, but they don't all have the time anymore. There's a lot going on over there, and they want to expand the cast. But they can't just go kick one of them out of the group. They want guests to help relieve the pressure, but they don't want to be excluded from the game. So they looked into history and tried to find out what the hobby has done before to solve their problems. And West Marches is a good idea. It might just work. Even for a more story-focused game like they've been doing, like I've been doing, like Critical Role usually is. And like Brennan said,
on a storytelling level, really maps to forms of fantasy storytelling that people are intimately familiar with and know and love.
Yeah, split the party, play different campaigns, and mix them together. But that brings it back to the original question I asked at the start. Is that really West Marches? I don't think so. Now, I'm not saying anything Brennan or Matt or the gang over there doesn't know. They know that West Marches is usually about player-directed session scheduling. Brennan even said he ran for 40 plus people at college. So that's probably how they scheduled those games. Classic West Marches stuff, right? But I think the reason he used that phrase, West Marches style, is because we, the community, don't really have a word for what he's doing. It's one campaign, but it's multiple tables, but it's not player-driven scheduling, and it's 3 play groups, and they all sound a bit separate, right? Maybe they'll mix it up a bit, I assume so, but Swords, Seekers, and Schemers sound like different play groups with different definitions of fun. Also, Fighter, Mage, Thief, I assume that's on purpose. The amount of D&D history Brennan is sneaking in here just at the start is wild. He knows what he's doing, and they're going to switch them up. They're going to shuffle them, right? Obviously. We're going to see these dynamics emerge from that, and it's going to be really cool. They can't tell us now how they're going to, because they can't know until later. Because if you hadn't noticed, Brennan is the make shit up kind of DM. But if I had to call that playstyle something, it sounds a lot like how I've been describing my own playstyle, which I guess is maybe kind of like MCU style, or maybe Avengers style. You know, first we meet Tony, Cap, Bruce, and Thor, and then we join them together. And then, after that Avengers movie, we focus on individual stories, and we mix and match them to see fun dynamics emerge. Thor and Hulk, Cap versus Tony. Spidey does a movie with Tony and then with Strange. We use Civil War as an excuse to meet Black Panther. All the stories intertwine and fork and split. And then we have a side story with Quill and Outer Space to set up the villain. Doctor Strange to explain the magic jawbreakers and time travel, which might matter later. I don't know about you, but I am so excited for this. Critical Role decided that they're assembling the actual play Avengers. Yes. I can't wait to hyperanalyze each episode's plot to see how they connect to the grander storyline and watch how the community gets obsessed about each little hint dropped along the way. I am so excited. Even though I don't think I'd call this West Marches style, I think it's the wrong word, but I don't want to watch Critical Role as West Marches style. And I don't think we're going to call it Avengers style either, because I think the word should come from somewhere within the hobby. At my table, we call it Orethon-Style, since it's my campaign setting, and it's how I've been running it for 10 plus years, but I doubt I invented this style. Maybe one day it'll be referred to as Ahriman-style, and yeah, it's got a little accent over the third A, and that gives it a little fantasy spice. Actually, sidebar.
That accented A exists in Icelandic. It's pronounced as ow. And by the way, if you're going to have 3 A's in a word and they're all pronounced the same, but one of them has an accent, like what are you doing? Shame on you. Ahriman wouldn't have an accent, but Ahriman would, and it would sound more fantasy and Nordic accurate with the accent. I mean, it's a fantasy world, so what does it matter? You do you, gang, but I'm going to pronounce it as Ahriman.
So, for what should be obvious reasons, I am super excited for Critical Role to be doing my Orethon style of play, because I ran nearly 100 sessions of West Marches D&D, and it was great. But in the end, I fell out of love. I wanted a story-driven game where the plots involved the characters more. Playing with 50 plus people introduced me to the people who were ready to drop everything for a game about math rocks. And that's where I found my family. I wanted to shrink my player group, and I wanted to be able to keep everyone's character in my head. I still wanted to play with everyone else, but I was so busy I couldn't do both. So I had to pick, and I picked the more modern style of D&D. But I had my cake and ate it too, and that's when I developed Orethon-Style D&D. I have now run 90 plus campaigns in the same world, and they all collaborate to introduce factions, NPCs, magic artifacts, plotline stories, secrets, and more. It's all this huge interconnected weave, and I am so surprised more people aren't playing it that way. I cannot wait for Brennan to introduce more people to that style of play and get everyone interested in a new and fun way to create stories at their table, Ahriman style. And if you want to join that tradition, you can start now. When your next adventure wraps up, take a quick pause from the campaign to run a new 3-session adventure that sets up a faction you'll introduce in the main campaign a few months from now. And when you do, your players will think you're a genius. Or alternatively, take the dive and build a massive Discord and organize an actual genuine West Marches game. It's amazing. You'll create a community of players with your own willpower, and they'll look up to you as they use it to form their own groups. Start DMing and take the plunge into the hobby with you. Go be your own groups, Kevin Feige. And that's where we'll pick it up next time. Thanks so much for watching this video. This channel is run by me. AB likes the book.
Lesbians.
If you want to support us directly, consider joining our Patreon, because I just left my job to try and do this YouTube thing. We finished the video game I directed, Echoes of the End, out now, and I saw an opportunity to leave and see if I could make YouTube work.
Yes, this is scary.
In the coming weeks and months, I'll be putting a lot more time and resources into Patreon, because this is my job now. Paid members have access to our entire backlog, and they get several extra videos a month. Monster stat blocks for Obsidian. They get monthly PDF rules, which may include magic items, adventures, new classes, and spells. And starting in a couple of months, we're starting a zine called The Broadsheets, which collates those things into an adventure once a month. All of them. So if you want to join the Patreon before we start the zine, we're offering 30% off our annual Adept subscription with a coupon code ZINE until September 28th. It's a whole production over there, and now that it's my job, I'm going to try my best to make it even better than it already is. So until next time, keep studying the mystic arts.